Hello, and welcome to my voice. This is my voice. Hi. It's probably quite crackly because it is quite late. But I'm gonna get into the more side of the story. So I'm starting with Colony this side because I can. So Colony obviously became friends because they met each other at Molly's funeral, and then we were friends for 3 years. Belle had to move away, and then they met up again a couple of years later in high school and became friends again. 9 years later they started dating and then got engaged. Before they got engaged though, Carol slept with Lily. Now this was because Lily was threatening to hurt Maddie and wouldn't give Maddie back. So he slept with Lily to get Maddie back. In the end he did, but it ended up with Jack being born. Jack was born early because he was born magically, because he had to do strong spells, and you can't do spells when you're magic. Like in my head you couldn't, because I feel like maybe it would be too dangerous, something could go wrong and the spell could backfire, something like that. So I thought, this is a great rule, you can't use magic when you're pregnant. I like that rule. So I kept it, and she ended up having to have been born early because she had to use strong spells to be a guardian and for the training and stuff. It ended well. And so 5 years later, he had to move away, so they moved to the apartment, and he ended up going out the poshest alpha school you can, because it was the apartment was the closest place they could stay, and it was near their school and stuff. So he went there for a couple of years. When he was 11, and he decided to have a child of their own, decided it's a great point, we're probably going back to our old house. We're gonna have to stay in this apartment's not good and not big enough for a baby, but the other house will. We're gonna have a baby and then move back. So they ended up having a little one, and then 4 months later Jack graduated, and so Jack graduated out of primary school, and it ended tragically, as after the graduation there was a fire which everyone got out, but Carl and Tommy never ended up getting out because of the crowds, the chaos and all that. They couldn't get out, and then the fire surrounded them. This is where Maddie turns up. Randomly, she ends up there. She was there to graduate Jack, but ended up having to save Carl and Tommy. When she got there, she noticed that the fire wasn't touching him. He had made a ring of fire around him but couldn't touch him, and she thought, this is odd. So she saved Carl and put him on the doorstep with all the firemen, and took Tommy to the dark room where he lived with her and crew looking after him. So obviously they were all 3 of them were devastated and grieving, and went home really sad for this news, because they all thought he was dead. Maddie and crew were the only 2 people that knew he was okay. They soon decided that it was better if they just moved on. They obviously still grieved and were upset by this, but they decided we can't let grief take over our lives, and started having an open mind again. Another 4 years later, they decided to try again because they really wanted a kid. And so, Kira was born. Kira was very good and she was very behaved, but they didn't want her to leave. They only ever took her out if they're going to a friend's house or if they were taking her out into the garden. They didn't really want her to go to public places or anywhere else like that because they were really scared that something had happened to her. They also started getting very protective of Jack, but he kind of just did what he wanted, so they kind of gave up after a while. They still protected him, but not as much. A couple of months after Kira was born, Maddie brought Tommy back to them because she realised that it would end up badly anyway. As Carl was starting to having dreams about Maddie and the fire, and he thought it was grief, but he went to Luke, and Luke thought it was really odd, and she overheard their conversation and decided that she had to give Tommy back because she couldn't hide him anymore. Drew talked her into it, and so one morning, while feeding Kira breakfast, and this is when Maddie walked in with Tommy. At first, Carl didn't recognise Tommy, as he was 5 now, but Maddie took off the plaster that was covering his alpha mark, and he started to cry and got really happy at this. He ran up to Tommy and hugged him. This is when Maddie teleported away with a smile on her face. She felt relieved of this secret. A couple of minutes later, Jack walked in and he ran up and hugged Tommy straight away because she recognized him straight away. And Jack stood there smiling and was just really happy. They introduced Tommy to Kira, and this is when Carl told Jack to go and talk to Maddie, and Jack went to go and do that, try and get answers out of her why she'd done this. A couple months later, they went to a park, and they were quite hesitant about taking Tommy to the park, but decided it's probably good for him as he'd been in the dark room so long. It was nice for him to get some sun and see other kids his age. This is where he met Penny. Penny was an abused girl who was very shy and timid and didn't really feel comfortable around adults. So Tommy looked after her and took care of her and decided to care for her, and they turned to become best friends. This is when they took Kira in a couple of weeks later, as her mother had been taken to jail for assault on someone and illegal drug use. And they took her in, and she was a lot happier and started opening up to adults and started opening up even more to Tommy. Another 3 years later, Maddie and Jack got married straight after high school, and then 3 years later they had a baby girl named Victoria. Victoria was going to be the mother of Layla, who Layla would be the strongest female alpha. She would have 3 marks and be the good future for the female alphas, being born with marks and being able to be respected. Another 5 years passed. Everything was normal the last 5 years, and it was going great. But this is when Grayson turned up and tried to take Victoria and try and use her for his own games, like trying to make an army of strong alphas kind of thing. So Maddie and Jack were very scared of Victoria's safety, so they hid away in the Dark Kingdom. No one was allowed in or out. You'll know a bit more about that when I move on to Jack and Maddie's future story. So this is when they went off, and this left them alone. They were obviously sad about this, but decided it was safe for them, so they got over it, and they could still call them. They phoned every night and spoke to them, see how they were doing, running the Dark Kingdom. Around this time, Tommy and Penny started dating. More years later, everything was going great. Kara started high school and had struggles finding love, and she wanted to find someone special, but she was struggling with that until she met Tim. Tim made her a lot happier and made her feel good about herself. Then Tommy and Penny got married and had a baby with Mitchell. Mitchell was kind of the end point, so everyone had moved out of the house, and it was just those two in the house living alone. They had retired, and Tommy was now in charge of the company, and they were living their best life, going on holiday, and just enjoying it, spending time with family a lot more now since they didn't have to go off so much. And that's kind of the end point of the story, because obviously we had Victoria coming back and Eva giving her guardian power and tomorrow power to Victoria to look after. I will more about that in also my entire story. So I hope you enjoyed this. So if I've ranted a bit, I'm kind of obsessed. I like writing future stories. I find it very nice to try and wrap everything up. So yeah, if you want to, I'm going to do the frames next if you want to see. I'm probably going to do the frames next, and then I'm going to move on to Maddie and Jack, and then I'm probably going to do a bit of Tommy's and Penny's and Kira's and Tim's, do them two probably together because they'd probably be a bit short. Do obviously Kira's and Damien. That's probably wrong. I've already forgotten. I can't remember exactly. Oh yes, Victoria marries Noah's Violet's kid. Noah is obviously Diana's son. I'll go into a bit of that story too. Yeah. I didn't do much with Noah. He was just that off character that I use sometimes. But he is quite important to the storyline. Sorry about that rant at the end. That was a bit odd. But yes, I'll probably do Looping Tools and Frames next. Quite excited to do that. They have 3 kids, by the way. Just a bit of a overlook. So, hope you enjoyed. And if you liked my voice, I'm gonna guess it's a no. This year has been absolutely amazing. And I'll see you later. Bye bye.